Greetings of the day, everyone. I am Vaijayanti Sambat Kumar, and on behalf of EDC Talks, I welcome you all to today's podcast on trends on marketing. EDC Talks focuses on the topics of interest in today's world and helps the viewers to get insights on different aspects. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Ms. Ridhima Manocha, currently the management trainee at Unilever. She published her first book, Sun and Shadows, when she was just 13 and was the youngest speaker ever at the world's largest literary festival, Jaipur Literature Festival. She is a very creative person and a great public speaker. In her own words, she translates her skills as a storyteller to that of digital marketing and has achieved a lot in that field. We are really glad to have you today with us, ma'am.
Thank you, Vijayanti. It's my pleasure being here, and thank you for the tall praises. I don't know if I truly deserve it, but I really appreciate. And I'm looking forward to having an insightful conversation with all of you, and in fact, learning from all of you as well.
Same here, ma'am.
Okay, so the first question is, how has digital marketing affected the world scenarios of marketing, and how is it actually benefiting the company and the consumer?
Okay. Firstly, thank you for that question, Nishita. I think to begin with, this question also calls for an introspection, right? We as consumers, how many times when we have to go buy something, we actually go online and research. I was surprised to know the statistics that almost 81% of shoppers across the world always research online before stepping inside a store, and 74% of the customers are frustrated because of getting irrelevant in messages and offers. So I think this statistics highlights both the need that is arising, where people are more often than not looking at an omni channel. I won't say digital marketing is the only channel, because it's an omni channel in the sense that we also have digital marketing, and at the same time we have this traditional form of marketing interacting with each other. So sure, the online experience has changed the way we look at offering, or the way we shop, the way we look at prices. More often than not, you'll go at a shop and you'll take out your phone and you'll look कि online kitne ka bik raha hai, right? Like, you don't want to just go and get yourself ripped off by purchasing what's there. You always have, as consumers, I think we're also having access to a lot more information. So I think as brands as well, we are cognizant of that. What is interesting is in traditional marketing, we have something called 4Ps theory, right? Which is basically product, price, place, proposition. Some people also add the other tools, which is basically promotion, sorry, packaging. Let me start again. I think product, place, price, pack, proposition, and your promotions as well. So all of them, when you translate that to a digital world, it takes a different form. So for instance, let me take 1P pricing. In traditional form, when you look at pricing, it's stuck on a tag, you cannot really change it. But when you move it to a dynamic online world, your pricing is also being altered by these algorithms. So for instance, let's say the number of people who come back and look at that product, and then you come back to and see that product, it is being dynamically altered in real time. I think the very fact that we see a change in a very simple P pricing when you move it to online world means that brands also have to respond to these users in ways that we have never done before. Initially, we have always been looking at marketing as a static word. It's a one-way conversation. But now I think with this world of digital marketing, it has also become more of how much you're listening in, how much you're taking from the consumer. So it has become a more of a dialogue rather than a one-sided conversation, and I think that really changes the dynamic. I can go on and on about how some brands have been doing that really successfully. I think the new age brands that have come in, they have really capitalized on this trend, where they believe in having conversations with consumers on their D2C platforms, on social media. So everything that you see online becomes a touch point for you to know more about consumers. So I think that also brings the point of how much data there is online. And I think with this explosion of social media, explosion of online advertisement, there's a lot of data that brands can use that also help us do a precision and a targeted advertising in a way that we have never done before. So honestly, there's a lot of exciting stuff that's happening here, and that has really changed the way that consumers are buying, and more often than not, the way brands are talking to consumers now.
That was really insightful. Yeah, we do see a lot of real-time changes in the prices, and now we know a little bit of backstory about that. So thank you for that. Now, we go on to the next question.
No, wait, I have a question.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah.
You pointed out about the social media advertising. I wanted to know that
Hmm.
is it really working good for companies, because people really have very less attention spam on social medias. If they don't like something, the attention is just gone from that product and they will just skip that again and again. So
Correct.
the attention span is the factor that is threatening the digital marketing. So is it true, or it is still benefiting the companies?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Vishav. And I think this is something that all of us as brand marketeers need to think about more. You are right in pointing out that attention spans are dwindling. But I think I would also like to push back a little, saying that when we compare attention spans to people watching TV, it's in fact even worse because one, you have option of switching from one channel to the other. Second, you have multitude of advertisements coming in. More often than not, they're probably on mute. So a lot of conversations, brands spend insane amount of money. Just to give you an idea, one TV advertisement, one spot at a prime spot wouldn't, like, let's say like IPL, it wouldn't cost you anything less than a 10 lakh. So you're spending 10 lakh and it might or might not even reach the consumers. But having said that, I think what makes digital a little different in terms of attention span is that you can do a lot of personalized advertisement. So, for instance, I know that, let's say Vishav is into healthy eating. I know Vishav also likes to gym. I also know maybe Vishav has an avid interest in football. So when I come and advertise to you, let's say I have a healthy product, I will try linking all three of those in such a way that it becomes personalized to you. So it doesn't even seem like an ad. I think the trick of digital marketing is how you can personalize it in such a way that it doesn't feel like an ad ki kharido kharido kharido, but instead it feels like a conversation that I as a marketeer can provide value to Vishav because of the data that I have. And I think going back to the point of data, this is the data that you won't get in an offline world, right? Like you can only speak one word conversation, but when you have this personalized ad, of course the attention span would still mean that 80% of your message might not reach, but 20% if it reaches, and then hence 20% can convert, that also in itself is a big sort of added delta to the brand. So I would say that yes, it's a problem, as you rightly identified, but because of the data, because of the personalized targeting, because of the precision and real time data that we have, we are able to counter that to some extent, not, of course, to a large extent. I hope that answers your question, Visha.
Yes, it answers. I would like to convey my thoughts.
Sure.
So basically, it was just like that. Attention span is the problem, but
Mm-hmm.
social media platforms are making ads more and more interesting, using our interest and
Mm.
sharing with it with the companies and making ads like these. Am I getting it right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Spot on.
You can continue.
Okay, that was an interesting insight. Thanks, Bishop. So, moving on. We see a lot of influencers advertising many brands today. Like one of the biggest examples is that of Mama Earth. Do you feel that in today's marketing game, such influencer advertising has become part of the norm?
I think again a good question. It I wouldn't go as far as saying that it has become a norm. It has certainly been adopted by many large brands, but there are also a lot of brands that don't believe in influencer marketing in a big way, and I'll tell the reason why. Right? It also depends upon which product or which life cycle of a brand you are. So if you know there is a brand when it starts, it's more in the reach of awareness. When it goes up, there is almost like a delta. It goes in terms of the final growth phase, where maybe rather than using influencers, they rely more on like big faces, like let's say Virat Kohli. Although you can argue that those are also influencers in some ways because they're influencing, but not influencers the way we know it, right? And then towards the end, maybe they have influence, maybe they don't. Also, it also depends upon which kind of industry you belong to, right? So for instance, if I'm a B2C, which is a business to consumer, it makes total sense for me to have influencers. But then there's also a very large segment of B2B brands, business to business, where my advertising or the way that I'm reaching out to consumers won't be relying on influencers, where I'll probably use more of email marketing, CRM, which is customer relationship management, and direct relationship selling, right? But when it comes to D2C or B2C, which has become, I think what also happens is we have this bias where we see that, oh, you know what, Mama Earth is doing or Lakme is doing or these other brands are doing. So hence, influencer marketing is the only way for a brand to make an impact. I think I say this also with the awareness and the caveat that influencer marketing is expensive. Just getting one influencer post, I think being on the other side of the table now, I realize how having contacted a few of those influencers myself, I realize it's not easy for any brand to do. But I think what it also does is democratizes the process of access to information. So for example, as a new age brand like La Mama Earth, the idea or the goal for the brand is to do awareness. So there are three things in marketing that you can do. One is awareness, second is consideration, third is purchase, right? And then you also have the fourth stage, which is advocacy, which is post purchase. So for example, if as a brand your goal is to say reach or increase the awareness, then influencers make complete sense. But there also the choice of which influencer you take is very, very crucial. So for instance, I as a Mama Earth cannot depend upon a sport influencer, or let's say someone who is a productivity influencers. I have to choose influencers in such a way that I'm reaching the audience that I actually intend to use. So there your choice of influencer also becomes important. So one is, what is your goal of brand? Is your goal of brand awareness? Then go for it. Is your goal of brand consideration? Then make sure that you have that brief given to your influencers so that the advertisements can be made in such a way. And the third is what kind of influencers that you're using. And the fourth is also, I think what ends up happening is a problem in influencer marketing sometimes is you don't know how to track it. You're putting all the monies in, but how do you know that when it comes to the, so we calculate all marketing activities based on something called ROI. Anything that I invest, am I getting returns of investment on influencer marketing? Sometimes you cannot directly track it. One interesting way that brands are utilizing it right now is using influencer code. So, for instance, let's say Vijenti20, I'll give you a code Vijenti20. Vijenti is an influencer. She'd go ahead and advertise something, and then people can go and use that product. So, as a brand marketer, I know how much of an effect that influencer code had. It also helps reach and build this positive associations with brands. So influencers is not just to reach awareness, but it is also a lot about psychology. So for instance, can I leverage Vijanti, who stands for beauty, who stands for upcoming trends, to do my own advertisement? And I can do that with the associations that she has built on her page so far. Sometimes also what brands do, and this is becoming more common now, is that rather than promoting our post, I'll go to Vijanti's handle. I'll say, Vijanti, I can give you 10. I mean, I won't say I can give. It's the agency basically negotiating on behalf of the brand. They'll say, we'll put, let's say, 50,000 behind one of your posts. We'll promote that on Instagram. So it won't look like Mama Earth is advertising. It will look like Vijanti is advertising one of her posts. But ultimately, what's happening is that Mama Earth is getting traction because of that. So that's also another way that brands are utilizing influencers by putting monies behind the influencer's account rather than their own account. Which brings me back to my previous point where I was saying that brands have become more of, it won't be like I having a one-sided conversation. It would be a conversation where I listen as much to you and where I make sure that we create this online community. So I think influencers is definitely helping create and leverage that online community as well. Yeah.
Yeah, just like Misho did with their Dhamaka campaign, right? When Saurav Ganguly incidentally, um, spoiled all the incident.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
That
right.
was another level.
Well said, Ridhima. I mean, one should always have the target audience in the mind for their own marketing, right? So, I would like to ask the other question. How is the modern day multi level marketing different from the old pyramid scheme that used to exist? Is there a way for a person to differentiate if MLM is right or wrong, as there are many kinds of frauds in it?
Right. Again, a good question. I think pyramid schemes have always existed. Pyramid schemes will also exist. I think I don't know how to sugarcoat this in any way, but to be very, very blunt and upfront in saying so, that I think the way that human society is built is that a lot of us are prone to trusting people, sometimes for the right reasons and sometimes for the wrong reasons, as it turns out.
It's
And
like a
what
human
happens is
tendency, right?
exactly. And I think sometimes that's a positive human tendency as well, because I cannot imagine a world where everybody is so suspicious of the other person's intentions as well. I think that would really call for like not a very, very kind world where you're questioning everything. But at the same time, what ends up happening is that because we have this human tendency of trusting people, we end up falling for things. So, for instance, even right now, I think maybe an example that I would like to give is that each one of us probably knows of one or the other insurance uncles in our family or the insurance aunties in our family who will come and try selling you or your parents like insurance at places where you don't typically want. So right now you have all these online forums, you have a lot of access to information, but yet because you have a relationship with them, because you share some form of positive bonding over couple of years, that you end up, even when your rational brain is saying, you know what, Ridhima, that's not a great idea, you end up falling for it, right? And I think MLM in today's world, it has evolved definitely. What happens, I think, going back to the influencer code campaign thing, that in itself is a way of how multi-level marketing is working, where it is using people as a way to sell a certain thing, but it's not the same as a pyramid scheme, because I think the way you would look at pyramid scheme is that they will also be selling products that they know that that's not correct. For instance, the Sahara group had a scheme where it's called chit fund, right? So they used to sell these chit funds with people who were coming from not so well-to-do backgrounds, and they used to put all their savings into it, and later it came out that it was a huge fraud, and a lot of people had put all their life savings into it and nothing came out of it, right? But I think what in today's world at least is that one, we have a lot more regulatory authorities when it comes to selling through people. So there is a lot of monitoring, there are organizations now, there is now government is also looking at more laws that we can bring about to sort of regulate this process. Second is that influencers themselves are becoming a bit cognizant of what kind of product are they selling. Are they selling a product that can give them backlash? So I think this cancel culture has also, while of course I have my own problems with the whole cancel culture, there are also merits in a way that it leads people to sort of not, I don't know if self censor is the right word, but self monitor what kind of content they are promoting and what kind of impact it can have. So that kind of awareness that has been built within this community, which constantly monitors each other, has ensured that it is reduced, or the negative impacts of it is reduced to an extent. But largely, pyramid schemes, as I said, will continue remaining in some form. The only advice would be to remain cognizant, to question as much as you can. And I know it's easier said than done, but when someone tries to come and sell you an insurance or to come and try to sell you a chit fund, really ask yourself, do I need that? And is that something that's going to be beneficial to me? I think asking those couple of basic sanity check questions really helps sometimes. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Ishita.
The one more thing,
Yes.
Yeah,
in today's market, Andrew Tate is becoming very famous, and because of his misogynistic behavior on internet, and he using that is his infamous on internet. He's using his MLM products in its pyramid scheme to sell very large scales. He has very big crunch of people who rely on him and sell them very quickly. So is it a way to a new thing in MLM, or is it a demerit of MLM that he is being toxic on internet and creating him famous and then making his product his face value more and more, I would say, precious on internet. There are many followers
yeah,
who trust him blindly.
yeah. No, very, very good question again, Rishabh. I think this is again something that I would say has been happening. Like, let's say any follower, any leader will always come with a cult, right? I don't want to offend any religious identities, but gurus or some form of leaders have always had a cult. Sometimes they also have content that might not be appealing to or inclusive to all sets of audiences, and they have been capitalizing on that to sell all of that. But that's a different story. I think what you're pointing towards is this direct misogynistic and infamous trend that he has been receiving and sort of
Yeah,
capitalizing on that, right?
yeah,
I think that also a lot of actors have done, in a way that they say something controversial and they'll capitalize on that. I think Kardashians have built a full brand around themselves with the kind of some stuff that they've said. I'm not promoting that what they're
yeah.
doing is right or wrong. I'm just saying that it happens. Whether it's right or wrong, it's I would leave that to people like you who are smart and who know that this there is a line that needs to be drawn. I think one good step that I thought Twitter took last time was with the banning of Donald Trump. I thought that was such a huge step. Imagine banning a world leader. That's the kind of power that I think social media has now, where they can kind of direct conversations and ensure who has the dialogue or not. So I think maybe it's my hunch, it's my hope that in future, when there are such conversations which could be hurtful or offensive to certain group of societies, social media takes a proactive step in ensuring that such people are not given an unfair amount of platform through their social media, and there is some form of regulation. I'm not in favor of complete ban, because I think that stops the conversations altogether. You don't need to reach. I think that would make for a dystopian world where you cannot have a free one-on-one conversation without the fear of with the fear of getting banned or whatever. But I think still making sure that there are community guidelines exist for a reason, and community guidelines need to be followed. So if there is something that is offensive to a particular member of a community, maybe that particular post in itself needs to be actioned towards. And by whether and I think as a brand as well, you need to be a little bit more responsible of the kind of influencer you choose. Of course, they can create their own brands and sell, but when it comes to you choosing an influencer for your own brand, I think we need to vet out the kind of influencers you choose.
So, moving on to the next question. Even after being described as harmful and injurious, companies are still promoting products using surrogate marketing. What do you think is the impact on children when they see their favorite stars advertising products like cigarettes and alcohol? What is your stand on this?
Yeah, I think again a very important question. It is there is no other way to sugarcoat it. When you see someone influencing children into buying stuff like cigarettes and alcohol, I think I don't know whether children is actually the direct audience, but of course, as you said, they do end up getting influenced just based on how young they are and what's their age. And but I think surrogate advertising, it's a tricky one, right? While they are not advertising the product directly. It's the associations that people already have. So, for instance, what Blue Imperial, right? Or even the way they are being advertised. So forget trying to sell a music CD, which is actually not a music CD, but something else. Sometimes the kind of taglines they use as well. So I won't name the brand. I think it's very obvious if I say it. Like one tagline that is there, like "Boys will be boys." That in itself has such big misogynistic tones. So when you hear something being advertised as "boys will be boys," and then they go and harass, go and catcall a woman, and then they normalize all of that in the name of "boys will be boys." They're also sending out this message that, hey, they're sending out this message for young boys who basically look at TV not just as a way that other people behave, but a way that in society in large behaves, because that becomes a window for them to look at the larger world. And then of course they end up getting influence, and then this perpetuates this whole cultural problem as well. I think there it's a bit trickier, as I said, because for any council, so there's a lot of politics that's involved as well. So every ad you would know is vetted out by a council that sits in, sees whether this ad is fit for people to see. And especially in television, they have to take that care, because in movies and all, you can always have above 18 guidelines and stuff like that. But in television, you are exposing a large set of audience, which consists of children as well. And there you cannot regulate that as much as you can regulate on social media. I think another merit of social media is because you have targeted advertisement, you can do a bit more responsible advertising in the way that you ensure that all your advertising is directed towards young adults or adults and not children when you're advertising products like that. And I think another thing that surrogate advertising or brands that are doing cigarette advertising end up doing is that they also know that the large set of consumers are not going to be the consumers who are consuming the cigarettes today, but in fact are going to be the consumers who haven't done it. So for any brand, it's always the unpenetrated audience which is larger. In this case, it so happens to be that it's the children who haven't consumed alcohol or who haven't consumed cigarettes. So they'll put, while they won't directly advertise, they'll also have some form of movies or in some form of television where you see a young person smoking and suddenly it becomes like a cool thing to do. So that itself is a surrogate advertising, where it's not advertising to you, it's not screaming out its ad, but yet it's ad. And I think here again, there are three things that are needed. And one, of course, is the parental guidance.
Right.
I think I cannot overemphasize the fact that there are going to be there's going to be content, there's going to be ads, there is going to be stuff on the internet that your kids should not be exposed to, yet they are exposed to. As a parent, you have to do a bit more responsible when it comes to that, because while of course there are demerits to being exposed to it, there are also merits. So for instance, a lot of child ka development perspective gets formed because of the things that we see on TV. So you don't want to eliminate that entirely, but you also want to ensure that they're watching the right kind of content. So I think Netflix took a positive step in that direction by having a separate sort of filter for kids. So that ensures that when kids are watching content on Netflix, they are exposed to a particular set of content that is suitable for their age. So I think with the rise of OTT platforms, other platforms also like Prime and Hotstar should perhaps adapt in that direction where they have a children filter, and that will ensure that the kind of content that they're exposed to is fit to their age. So one is of course the parental guidance, second is the role that OTT platforms will take, and the third is the role that advertising councils and the councils that are sort of declaring content fit or unfit also take a proactive step in ensuring that the content that is being published is fit to view for all ages, and in fact are not detrimental to a child's development and the way they see the worldview. So I think that would be my 2 cents on it.
And also since these type of surrogate ads are illegal by the government, set by the government, why are even they allowing them to advertise it through an indirect channel? Like,
Yeah,
I don't recognize the brand, but there was some Silver Pearls brand of pan masala, but in a tiny little thing in the left bottom, that these are only silver pearls, these are not pan masala.
I
And I,
know. Yeah,
and I have seen
which
children
was
who
promoted
that
by Priyanka
was,
Chopra.
yeah, that was so easily conveyed that even children know these are not silver pearls, these are something that we should not eat, and that's bad stuff like that. Like, it is so easily conveyable.
The
yeah.
problem is that with
Even
our
still
government is that
allowed
there are
into
too
content.
many loopholes that you can like literally come out of anything.
Correct. One is, of course, the loophole, as Pratyaksh mentioned, but I think the other thing is also the lobby that brands have within the government and within the organization. So it's not like brands do not have a proactive relationship with these organizations. So they also know how to navigate this way, right? Because, for instance, one of the interesting conversations I was seeing was how alcohol is being promoted online now. So there is this one brand. I just happened to have a conversation with the brand owner that day, and it's a new age gin brand, and they were promoting it on social media. So I think one of the first questions that came in my mind was like, is this legal to do? Are you allowed to do that? And I think even in social media, it becomes even worse, where one, at least in TV, you have some form of regulating council, because you're spending that much money, you are exposing a lot of audience, you have people who can see whether the kind of content you are posting is uh, you know worth watching or not. But in social media, when you use surrogate advertising, it explodes in a big way, because while community guidelines stand for not promoting alcohol directly, there is no end to surrogate or advertisement on social media, and there you can also target children. So how do you regulate that? That's another question in itself, that is left for policy
Like
advocates to think about. Sorry, were you saying something?
yeah, I was like in social media, the easy ways like suppose even Instagram allows like चलो ठीक है हमारे page में they are 18 plus childs 18 plus everyone is 18 plus and suppose the drinking age is 18 plus so
Hmm.
they allow everyone to yeah you can just promote your brands alcohol brands and all but then we all know that in Instagram not everyone is 18 plus
Correct.
there,
Yeah.
there is that loophole
Yeah.
so every place, like every marketplace, there is one or two loopholes that
Yeah.
make the brand easier to promote their sales and
Correct.
go
But
to the target that can, they know, like be cool and think that they are being cool and do stuff that they
Yeah.
should.
Yeah. And I wouldn't just say that the loopholes are being utilized in the wrong way by brands. I think all of us are guilty of perpetuating or being a part of that loophole. So, for instance, I can admit I came on Facebook when I was what, 13, 14 years old. I don't think so that's legal to be on Facebook at that age. I think all of us have done that. And honestly, that's why I would say that parental guidance is important. So even if you are on Facebook and Instagram, you obviously can't stop people from being there, but just seeing what kind of content they follow and whether that's appropriate for them is another thing that parents need to proactively check for.
yeah.
Hmm.
Moreover, I feel that people are getting more aware nowadays because recently Akshay Kumar starred in some pan masala ad, and there was an immense backlash for it, and
Correct.
he even apologized to the citizens that he'll not do it again. So
Correct.
I feel that people are getting more aware towards this, and there are some steps being taken in the right direction, but again it will take some time.
Yeah, no, rightly said, Vijayanti. Thanks for adding that.
Yeah, like he had a reputation to hold like uh, Akshay Kumar from start has said, I don't do this, I don't do that, I don't take chicken as a protein. I just, no, sorry, those protein shakes and all. He doesn't take that. But then again, he was doing ad for Horlicks protein, and then this comes Vimal. So that he was just contradicting what he said before. So
Yeah,
that is also there.
that is true. I think at least I can say for my the brands that I work for, Unilever, they have taken a very clear and a very defined approach that they are not going to advertise to kids in any way. So even when they're advertising Horlicks or Boost, which is a brand that we have acquired now, we try to make sure that we are advertising to parents, or in a way that parents are getting, or because ultimately they are going to be the buyers. The kids are not going to go and say, "Ki, I want to go and buy Boost." So I think ultimately the as a brand also you have to be a bit more responsible, and thanks Pratyaksh for pointing out that Horlicks example as well. I think we need to be a bit more careful in the way we are advertising as well, to ensure that we don't end up influencing children who might be gullible in any way. And at least that way Unilever has taken a proactive step in ensuring that.
Yes, that's right. So, on one hand, we have some cons for it, so we have some pros for it as well.
Yeah.
So, well said. So,
And
moving on
also,
to the last question from my side.
wait, one more thing.
Uh,
Do bad food products also come under surrogate marketing?
Sorry.
Do bad food products also come under, or the yeah, food products also come under surrogate marketing? Like marketing of sugar free, it was done by I think Shraddha Kapoor, which was for people who were diabetic. And
Hmm.
but I have read an article in which it was written it contains saccharine, which just blast out our nervous system and just completely, and that can cause cancer for obvious reasons. And why and it's not written on its ingredients and anything in its advertisement? Why is it even allowed, or no testing about it has done
Hmm.
before
No,
launch?
yeah, I think good point, Bishop. But I would like to draw a boundary of what we call surrogate advertising. I think surrogate advertising, at least the way I understand, so feel free to correct me, is when brands are advertising for a product which is not actually the product. So, for instance, I am an alcohol company, but I advertise CDs. So what I'm advertising for, it looks like I'm selling CDs, but that was never a part of my core product. So to get away with these advertising councils, I'll use a surrogate. So how you have the surrogate baby, where you have someone else basically looking that as one of the ways to sell. So the example that you quoted, while of course it has ethical issues where you are advertising sugar, which probably contains products which are harmful for you and all of that, but then that is not surrogate advertising as such. It is basically unethical advertising in a way that you're not giving full disclaimer or disclosure of what your product contains. So I think that's the boundary that I would like to draw. And I think going back to that example, there are hundreds of products as consumers that will be
Yeah,
harmful to you,
and all
but
the
you still, yeah, I mean, to take an example, there are so many soft drinks that we consume on a daily basis that have so much sugar that can cause things like heart attack, from cancer to ultimately diabetes and a lot of other diseases, but we consume them and we don't question it as much. So not all products that are going to be advertised are going to be ethical in nature, and I think that's the nature of advertising that we have to accept. The good part is that at least right now we have access to a lot of information, not just information that brand is promoting, but also information that you as a consumer would want to know. So you have forums like Reddit, you have forums like online communities where you can go and discuss products and the feedback. And I think the reviews itself has become such a big source of information. I think one direct way of how I purchase now versus how I purchased 5 7 years back, I feel like such an adult saying that, is I always go and look at reviews now before I make a purchase. I would not, for instance, especially I recently bought a mobile phone, I would have read like thousands of reviews to make sure that I knew the kind of phone that I'm buying is actually the right one for me. So
But
ensuring
again,
that.
that leads to one more topic, that you can't trust everything you see.
That is
in
also true.
actually in internet right now. If even I search, like I search a product and write, does it causes cancer, I'm 100% sure if there are 100 reviews saying no, there would be at least 50 that would say yes.
Yeah, I think certainly. I think that's something that's true for anything and everything. With access to information, but also comes access to overload of information. So, as a consumer, then it's up to you to filter out the right stuff and filter out the irrelevant stuff. So I think there it's up to you to use your own discretion, talk to the people that you trust. If you are not able to form an opinion, then take an expert advice. Make sure that you go and consult a physician if you're using a healthcare product. Don't trust it's something that an influencer is trying to sell. I mean, I am kind of killing my own business while saying that, but I think make sure that you have a trusted, you have someone that you can trust, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say. So, of course, don't read everything online, but also there are going to be forums that are going to be helpful for you.
That's also there, but like then again, like a girl who goes to a salon regularly, who would be her best expert to tell what hair product she should use? Of course, the lady that dresses her hair. And if that girl only, if the hairdresser only is like someone who is promoting someone's stuff, then once again you don't know where to trust again and not. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I believe it's kind of difficult world to gain your trust where you can trust this product or that product till the time you have an help of an expert.
Correct, correct. No, I see where you're coming from, and but I don't want to like lead you to this direction of skepticism where you end up
Yeah,
questioning everyone and everything. Sure, there are going to be informations that you cannot trust, but I think sometimes you just gotta go with your gut feeling. Not everything, at least, or not or the products that we make or the products that most of the reputed brands make, they make sure that they go through hundreds of clinical trials, they go through a lot of these testing, they go through FDA approvals, and those are not easy things to navigate or get by. So there are a lot of licenses that are required in India. So having said that, it's very rare that you would find a product that would be harmful for you in a way. So I would advise you to not be that skeptic. Try out those products for yourself. If you don't like them, of course, have your own opinion, and then move to another brand. It's a free world, so you will have hundreds of different options to explore. But don't be a skeptic, Pratyaksh.
Moreover, I feel like you were saying that many people are starting to become skeptic nowadays. So I feel that brands are using the goodwill of the people to market the products even if they are not good. Coming back to the example I stated earlier, the Akshay Kumar one for the pan masala, it became such a national controversy that even the people who didn't know about the brand before now know about that brand. And it is kind of marketing only, right? I mean, it has reached to a larger audience now, and people know about that brand. So many people were even saying that this was all a grand scheme, and actually this was done on purpose using Akshay Kumar, because they knew that there will be a huge backlash, and it will kind of give them free publicity of some sort.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think about that?
So, I mean, there are times when what brands end up doing, and there are theories that, they did this because of this reasons. I don't have sufficient information to comment on, this is how it happened. And of course, we can all have our theories around it. There are times when brands and people leverage on things like these. There, we have this quote that any publicity when you're advertising is publicity, bad or good, any publicity is publicity. Ultimately, what it does is, as a brand or as a brand manager, you have to think of it from the perspective of what is it that I can do which will ensure that the brand will have a top of mind recall. So, for instance, we have something called mind measures that we check. If I ask you to name top three brands that come in your mind when I say something like shampoo, and if our brands like Dove, Tresemme, or Clinic Plus come in your mind, that means we are winning in top of mind. So, for example, if I say something like pan masala, and if you've recently been exposed to the whole Akshay Kumar advertisement or the publicity stunt that happened, then it's very likely that you'll end up saying that brand's name. So while I have fulfilled my brand objective of getting the top of mind recall, I think it also raises question of at what cost. because as a brand manager, you also don't just have to look at the top of mind recall, but you also have to look at something called brand equity, where you look at what are the kind of associations that people have when I say my brand. So, for instance, if I say Dove, maybe the first words that come in your mind is normalizing beauty or gentle or good for all, things like those, basically some positive associations that come in your mind. Now if I say something like pan masala or the brand name of pan masala, you don't want those negative associations to come as well. But what happens as a result of negative publicity is that sometimes you end up having negative associations with a particular brand, and you don't, as a brand manager, you don't necessarily want that as well. So while from a consumer lens it might look like it's a good thing to do because it's publicity and you're getting top of mind recall, in the longer run, in the shorter run it might be good for business because higher brand recall, but in the longer run it ultimately destroys your brand image, which you want to maintain as healthy, positive, and have positive associations. And it also ends up making it tougher to lobby for within the government and within the councils then to approve your ads, because it leads to a little bit more skepticism. So while of course there are merits to it, as you said, where people have are thinking and talking of the brand more, but then it also this comes at a big cost of destroying brand equity. So you have to make some choices and ensure that the kind of brand that you're promoting also has positive associations to it then.
All right. As Vajanti said, that defaming is one of the weapons the companies use for gaining popularity. But as you said, ma'am, that in the longer run, it has its own consequences, right?
Correct, Rishita.
Okay. So I would like to continue with my last question that says, has social media taken over to become the platform for major marketing than other media formats like newspaper and television? If yes, then why are many big companies such as MNCs and startups still investing huge amounts on TV advertisements and papers? What do
Okay.
you have to say on this, ma'am?
Okay, I think let me debunk this with a big myth that's there, that social media has become a norm, and I'll tell you why. Half of the money that we still invest, half of our budget of advertisement, actually more than that. I can't give the exact number, but I just to give you a rough estimate, more than half of our advertisement spend still we spend on TV, not on digital. And there's a reason for that, because when we talk in India about India, it's not just people like you, me, and people on call or people who would listen to this podcast. We are talking about 60% of India that still lives in rural India, and this is where our next set of growth will come from, because 40% of your country lives in urban areas and they will only have a saturation point. They can only buy as many shampoos and as many soaps and as many Horlicks as possible. But when it comes to you really going and leveraging the next set of growth, you will have to go take the TV or the traditional form. So no, that's not dead yet. And another interesting statistics that I would like to share is that when it comes to your ROI or return on investment, TV actually has a higher ROI than digital. And there's a reason for it. The reason is, as a brand manager, you always want to make sure that what is the least amount of money that I can reach maximum number of people. Least amount of money that I can reach maximum number of people. So when it comes to, there is a metric that we follow. It's called cost per acquisition, or another word of it for it is CAC, cost for every acquired customer, right? So when it comes to CAC online, it's significantly higher because you are spending much more money showing that particular ad to a person who might or might not convert. So for instance, let's it's a simple ganit, it's a simple math. You have 100 million consumers that you're showing a TV ad to, and let's say 20% of them convert. So what is it? 20% of 100 million, 20 million get converted in a TV ad, right? Let's say 50 million you are showing digital ad to, and 20% of that 50 million convert. So you're ultimately 50% of 20% of that 50 million is going to obviously be less than 20% of 100 million. So, because the number of people that you're showing an ad to online is significantly less than the number of people that you're showing an ad to on TV, uh, that ultimately changes the number of people that you're reaching. But having said that, that doesn't mean that digital ads or TV or influencer marketing is irrelevant. It's very relevant for the new age coming brands that don't have the budget yet to go and advertise on TV, because as I said, it takes big pockets and big budgets to go and advertise on TV. And not all brands can afford to do that. But if I, as a brand manager who has access to hundreds of crores to make a choice, I would always prioritize TV over a digital campaign. For the simple reason, the number of people that you can reach and the number of response that you can get is higher. Of course, with digital, you have the advantages of doing personalized advertisement and doing, targeted advertisement and stuff like that. But even with all that, the calculation still says that your ROI is going to be lower. So ultimately, you have to chase higher return on investment, which you get through TV. And other thing is, the advantage though with digital over TV is that you can track how your performance is doing. So with your performance marketing and with real time data that you're getting, you always know whether your campaign is performing well or not. So with something like TV, we have, of course, organizations like Nielsen, Kantar, and Bark that do the research for us and they tell us how our ads performed. But you don't get the same set of data with how people are interacting with your ads, whether they are staying on the web page. We get data to such an extent where consumers or brands know how long a person stayed on the web page of a front web page, for how long, how many people put things in cart and then did not convert, and all of that. So finally, you know where your brand campaign is lacking, and hence you can always make that tweak. So you always have that prototype approach where you take feedback from the market, you validate that feedback, and then hence you iterate based on that feedback. You don't always get that on a TV advertisement. But having said that, there of course there are merits to it. But if you have the monies, I would say always prioritize TV over digital. But if you're a new age brand, and there are a lot of new good age brands that have done an excellent work on online content marketing as well. By the way, Sugar Cosmetics has done great stuff on content marketing with the way they've used influencers. So I think that's a learning in itself for us as well on how we can create a community online using digital media in such a way that it does not scream advertisement and it leads to a positive ROI as well. So those are some choices that we can make. And I just wanted to highlight that there are pros and cons of both digital as well as TV. So it's not ki digital he hai ab and TV is irrelevant. I think that's a myth, and I hope I helped debunk a bit of that.
Yeah, actually, I can give a supporting statement to that too.
Yeah, sure,
Recently,
Beba.
I watched a live stream wherein an angel investor, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name, but he was managing a portfolio of around 500 or 1000 crores. He said uh, just with this line, the next growing opportunity is not in India, it's in Bharat.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's true.
That sums up all the supporting discussions as well as the facts and figures that you mentioned.
Correct. That's very true, Vaibhav. I think we also look at not our campaigns as India, but we categorize them as India 1, India 2, Bharat, and your next set of growth. Everybody is betting on Bharat to grow, and especially FMCG industry, where the more money that people or the more access to information and resources that people in rural India are going to have, it's ultimately going to lead to the next set of growth coming from there. So very rightly said, Weber. Thanks for adding that.
Okay, so with that clarity, I think we all have got the answers to our questions. Would anybody like to say anything before I conclude? Okay, so I think we're good to proceed. On behalf of entire team of EDC, we are grateful to our honorable speaker for devoting her precious time and sharing her views with us. We're also grateful to all the participants who have been making this event a great success with their presence. Thank you once again and have a nice day.